Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest in the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today I have Sean Denny on the line, and he's a growth strategist over at Intero Digital. Sean, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Adam.
All right, Sean. So we got a lot to talk about today, man. A lot of business owners, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of executives that listen to this. And we're going to talk about testing business and marketing ideas for growth. Who doesn't want growth, especially profitable growth? We're going to get into that and more. But before we do, we'll start this episode the way that we start them all, with what we like to call our Mission Matters Minute. So, Sean, at Mission Matters, we aim to amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. That's our mission. Sean, what mission matters to you?
I think when someone's really passionate about their vision, their mission, their company, that's really important. And so what matters to me is helping them bring those missions, those values to life. And that's what we do at Intero Digital, is we don't see ourselves as a vendor. We are a company that becomes part of your team. So your mission becomes our mission. Your goals become our goals.
It's awesome. Well, love bringing mission-based individuals on the line to share why they do what they do, how they're doing it, and really what we all learn from that so we grow together. So just diving right in. I mean, when did you get interested in even this concept of growth? I mean, obviously you're a growth strategist in your day-to-day, but like, where'd all that come from?
So I started out in marketing over a decade back, and I thought it was fascinating just to see what is someone interested in. And if you look at marketing and business over time, what worked one day doesn't work the next day, or space it out. It's not day to day, but you get what I'm saying. With over time, things change. And I thought it was fascinating to say, okay, well, what's going to work today? And how do we set ourselves up for future success? Because what we're doing right now isn't going to continue with that. And then how it all plays together, because doing one thing isn't enough. You have to do a lot of things very well to be a successful business.
And Sean, a lot of people have, trouble with change. So even when you say something like what worked today may not work in a year or a month or 6 months or whatever, like to me, that's just part of the landscape, and that's just part of the deal. Because if it worked permanently, like long term forever, like everybody would be doing it, right? But there isn't any magic like that. There's true things you can do. There's systems you can build. There's practices, and there's strategic ways to grow. But it's not always going to be the same thing. How do you handle that conversation with clients or otherwise, or even yourself for that matter, about like just growth and like what that looks like?
So it really comes down to looking at and truly evaluating what's working for you right now, and why do you think that's working, and what's not working for you. And you have to be honest about that through that conversation with yourself or with customers or anyone else. And then as you're looking at it and really taking that deep dive, okay, if it's not working, what do I need to change? What is working? Let's keep doing that for as long as it is working. But you can't be stuck in your ways, and it's a cycle of what's working, what's not. Let's change what's not working. And then it just repeats and repeats and repeats.
Yeah. One of the things that that people are sometimes uncomfortable with, but to me, I mean, I love it. Like I learned pretty early on that if we're not testing something new, even if it doesn't work, we learn something, like period. Like there's always a learning going on. Like, what are your views on testing, and where does this play into the equation?
So testing is essential because user behavior changes. If we go back and we look at what kind of marketing was on TV 50 years ago versus what was on TVs 30 years ago versus what was on TV 5 years ago. All of them are drastically different. It's still the same medium, but what was said, how it's conveyed is drastically different. And users are changing too. It used to be you would watch TV, you would listen to radio, you might read a newspaper or a magazine, and that was how you would engage with media. Now, most people are online, and they spend way more time online than other aspects. So when you look at it and say, okay, well, are they just on Facebook? Are they just on Instagram? Are they just on TikTok? No, they're on all three of those, and they're on Google, and they're on YouTube, and they're on email, and so part of it is saying, Well, if I'm not doing any of these, how do I start adding that? How do I test what works for my audience? How do I test what works for my brand? How do I test my voice on these different channels? And how do I make sure that each one works for me in terms of what I want to convey, what I want to say, and how I want to interact with people? That testing is really important to understand, because you can't just say, you know what, I have to do email. That's going to be the thing. Well, it might be the thing, it might not. And what email you have today might work great, but in a year it might not, and that may need to change again based off your users and where they're at and what they're doing.
What kind of channels do you work on? So that's a good point. You brought up email. Like, what other channels is like testing important? Or like, can you give us some examples?
Absolutely. So paid advertising on Google is a clear one where testing is very important. Not only in the messaging and who you're going after, but even the platform itself. When Google is constantly rolling out, here's a new ad format, here's a new bidding strategy, here's new ways to engage and new ways to show your advertising content. Well, if I roll, as an example, Performance Max is a type of ad that Google rolled out that works across video, imagery, and written text inside of the Google search result. Well, do I want that all rolled into one or not? That's something that should be tested to see, is it better separate or combined to get the best results?
And so once you start gathering that data, and obviously this is going to be different on what you're testing and how you're testing and otherwise, like how do you use that data or those things to make informed decisions? Because that's ultimately, like, as a business owner, whether you're thinking about marketing, where you're deploying capital, what you're selling, your products. I mean, there's in everything, we need data to make better decisions. Like, how does that data help make better decisions specifically in marketing and growth?
Yep. So when you, before you even start testing, you have to have A, what's your mission? And B, what are your goals? What are we trying to achieve? Once you have that, you can then compare, here's the data coming back. How much traffic am I getting? How much visibility? How many conversions? How many leads? How many purchases? How much dollars? And you can see, how much did I spend to do this? How much effort did it take me? Did this work or did it not? And really look at, okay, if I spent XYZ dollars, I spent $5,000, I spent $300, I spent $50,000, whatever it is. How many leads did I get from this? What was the quality of those leads? So it's not in a vacuum. It has to be looked through your whole ecosystem of your business of what am I trying to achieve to make sure this worked? And it shouldn't be done from one person. This is a conversation between marketing, between sales, between operations, between that whole business of this is what we're doing. Here's the time frame we did it. Did we feel any changes? Did we see any changes? Our leads were up, but revenue didn't. Is this because of a longer sales cycle? What's needed to really evaluate the success of this in a holistic environment?
Now, one of the things that's going to come up for every business owner, I don't care who you are, I don't care the size of the business, budgets, right? If the budget's tight, and what budget isn't tight? I don't know any time I've ever heard a business owner be like, yeah, my budget's not tight. That ain't happening. I don't care what it is. Maximizing or thinking about maximizing a budget, or even having a budget on the side to test to make like real impact. Like how do you even approach that question?
Yep. So first, I like to define goals of what's working and what's not inside of, if I'm meeting this threshold, it's working and I can keep pushing money into it. Because if you're making money and you are getting a positive return on that, you should be able to funnel more money into it.
Of course.
Continuously to get that. So once you have that threshold, set the bottom X dollars or X percent, and whatever that isn't working, and you've set your time frame to test it. Okay, that's not working. I'm going to test something else. And it's a constant cycle of, if it moves it up, whatever's not working at the bottom, cycle that out and cycle that out and cycle that out. You want to give enough time to actually test it. So this, depending on the different channel, the different initiative, maybe it's 1 month, maybe it's 3 months, maybe it's 6 months, depending on your industry. But you constantly want to be looking at what's that underperformer and cycle it out for a new test to make sure it's getting there. To your specific question of, what if I don't have enough budget though? Like, I just don't understand how to make this work. There was that old adage of, I know 50% of my marketing is working. I just don't know what 50%. So I don't know.
Got it.
You have to then say, okay, well, where do I feel like I can either add a little bit extra, or where can I say I can take a little bit off the top here and a little bit off the top to push that further? Marketing is how your business grows. I know it's one of the first things that's usually cut when budgets get tight. It's also the thing that's going to push it when you have that capital to make it happen. So one of the most impactful decisions you can make as that business owner is committing to having that marketing budget and that testing budget as part of it. Maybe it's 5%, maybe it's 10%, but just setting that goal for yourself and sticking to it.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit more about Intero Digital, maybe some of the things you specialize in overall. Like talk to me a little bit more about the company as well.
Sure. So we are a full service digital marketing agency. We've got multiple offices across the United States in California, Utah, Colorado, Ohio, Missouri, and potentially expanding from there. And we specialize in that holistic approach to digital marketing. So that doesn't mean we can't do things, or we have specializations in like search engine optimization or paid media advertising or web design and development, content and PR. So we have these specializations, but inside of it, we have about 17 different service lines and different digital marketing channels that we work with to say, what is your team doing well? And where do you feel you're not doing well? Where can we augment you to make this work for everyone and hit every stage of that buyer's journey, of that consumer journey, to make it an effective engagement, so that from all the way from awareness to retention, even after they've become a customer of yours.
And there's an innovation lab as well too, right? Like talk to me a little bit about that.
Yep. So one of our divisions is called Innovation Labs, and what its whole primary purpose is to find new technologies, find new techniques, to test these new policies and these new things that are coming out. For example, Meta might give a very vague description about a new policy update that's not very clear.
Hold on, Sean. Meta would never do that.
Never, right?
Anybody that's a marketer that's watching this is probably just spit up their coffee. Go ahead. Meta would never do this. Very clear every time. Go ahead.
Every single time. So is Google. So is Microsoft.
Oh, no, don't bring up the Google. No, I'm just playing.
And so part of our role as the Innovation Lab is to say, okay, let's actually test this. Let's find exactly what this means, what those limits are, so that when you engage with us, you don't have to do that test. We've already done it for you. We know what works. We know what doesn't. We understand the nuance by industry, by policy, and can push that, and our clients can get the benefit of it without having to invest specifically in testing themselves for those.
Yeah. And giving an example, that might be something like maybe they have a new update on a type of ad that you can put out, or to a certain like targeting, and all of a sudden they're like, okay, you can't target this, but that's very broad. Does it mean I can't do it at all? Or does it mean a little? Like, what does that mean exactly? So you're testing it with your dollars to see like if you're going to get this strike or ding, or this like the ad's not approved, or things like that. I just want to make sure I understand it clear and that our audience does. Am I off on this? Because I think it's a big deal. I haven't heard of many companies doing that, if any, that I know of.
Yep, that's absolutely correct. So something like, as an example, in some states, CBD might be legal. In other states, it might not. I have some very hazy policies around what can be advertised, what can be said around CBD, what cannot be said around CBD. And this isn't just for Meta. This would be for Google.
Yeah, for sure.
Companies. So we're going to say, no, we're going to test. We're going to find the exact limits of what's allowed, what's not, what's the reach it's going to have, what are the limitations, what's the extra cost associated with something like this, or even something not as controversial potentially as a topic like that, looking at these AI platforms. So ChatGPT, Gemini, as those are rolling out. Google's rolling out their AI overviews inside of search. So how does this work? How does someone impact that? What does it even mean? Where Google's saying things like, well, if you have the right content, we're going to show the best one there. Okay, can you be any more vague in what you're actually saying?
Said the right content, Sean. Didn't you get that? Duh.
And so we're going to test what actually triggers those overviews. What triggers ChatGPT versus Gemini? What's different in what they're looking for? How do we make that work to understand and make sure that valuable information or misinformation, how to identify that as it's coming through some of these platforms and technologies?
Yeah, it makes so much sense, and it does show, forward thinking from the company. And you brought up AI, so I can't let you put that on the table without going further. Like how is that being used in terms of like whether it's Intero Digital, like currently or future, or just like what kind of conversations are being had? Because I'm sure just it's forward thinking company. You guys are doing something.
Oh, absolutely. So AI is changing the way that search is happening, and people are interacting with gathering internet or information off the internet. So
Yeah.
when someone's using a search engine, it doesn't matter what search engine, whether that's one of the new AI search engines or a classic one like Google or Bing,
Mhm.
they're coming with a painful.
Wow, isn't that interesting that we're talking about it as a classic one now? Yeah, or a wow, continue, but that's already new. And you're right, more and more people are saying that like our lexicon has already changed, whether we like it or not or otherwise. That's already now classic. Go ahead, but that just blew my mind when you said it because I keep hearing it. Obviously, I do a lot of interviews. I talk to a lot of people, and I keep hearing it. I'm like, wow, that's already like classic, and we're already thinking in that manner. We've all shifted. Whoa.
Yep. And with any of those search engines, however we're using them, we are coming with a pain point or a problem. We want something, whether that's information to solve or answer or to just entertain us or whatever it is, we're still looking for that information.
Yeah.
But something that's very different about these newer AI models is it's an interaction, not a one-way street. So historically on something like Google Bing, you type in your keyword phrase, it brings up information, you click on a link and you are finding that solution. With something like ChatGPT as an example, I type in what I want, it's going to come back with information and I continue the conversation with it while I'm getting deeper. And that is already a huge difference in terms of search behavior and how we interact. So to get a little nerdy here on the stats, typically a person is going to type between 3 and 7 words into a search engine to get it. For something that is voice search related, so when we talk into our phone or we yell at Alexa to actually search for us, that jumps up to about 16 words. When we are interacting with something like ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity or any of those, it becomes closer to 100-word conversation that we're having with the platform to get that information back and refine the nuanced answer that we want from it. And that's only just started within the last year. That's going to continue to evolve for how we interact with things, how we talk to it, what information we get back, when we get it back, and the form that it comes in.
So now, how is this affecting some of the decisions that you're seeing people make when it comes to their marketing and to their growth? Like, how is that affecting it? This change in this shift?
It is just starting out, but absolutely yes. Because as people are shifting off of Google and going over to ChatGPT or Gemini, that also means businesses are now saying, but how do I be on that platform? I want to still be relevant. I still want to be there. And even inside of something like Google search, it's changed its layout. It's changed its format in the search engine results page quite dramatically with lots more features than it used to have with video carousels and image carousels. And people also ask, and Quora's becoming a more prevalent part of it. Reddit's becoming very popular as a core feature of the search result. So what used to just be, hey, I would go to Google, I would get my answer. It's now, how do I impact this entire ecosystem to make sure I'm prevalent wherever someone's searching and finding me?
Which is interesting to me because I look back at, and when I say this, some of the younger people are going to be like, what is he talking about? But if you've been in this long enough, I remember when Google Business and just adding like having to have your business having its own page on Google, that was a big deal. There was a lot of people that made a lot of money setting up businesses with Google, just Google pages for their businesses and listings. And those that were early adopters and figured it out, some of them made some real money based on being findable on search and otherwise. Let's just say classic search. They made some real money because their competition that wasn't paying attention and maybe, took 5 years or whatever the amount of time was. And there are some people that still haven't and still don't realize they're losing leads because their Google page isn't like legit, their Google business page, and they're not findable. Like that's a very simple example. And that's kind of like where I think of it in my head of where it started. But those that adopt this and start thinking about this kind of stuff sooner, those that are they're gonna just naturally show up first. They're gonna get like, they're gonna be showing up more on as valuable content for the end user, which is the person that's searching or interacting for that particular business and or service and or piece of content or information. Because ultimately it doesn't matter. One theme is like across the board, and that is they want your eyeballs. They want you to sit there. They want you to be on their platform. They want you to go to their platform as much as possible, because that's a part of anybody's model. Social media, search, ChatGPT, whatever it is. If you're using the tool, there's a potential to monetize your traffic one way or another, which with whatever model they use. So for the business owners who are kind of ignoring this, it's like, don't let this be another like Google business moment. If you ignored that too, and then you ignored this and that, like, it's just because this one, I mean, my belief is that it's just going to happen faster. And that's going to be, so then it's not going to be a difference of like, you just decrease pretty slowly. It's going to be you wake up one day and you were getting a certain amount of lead flow online, and now it just disappeared out of nowhere, and then the switch was just shut off, and you don't know why, and you're trying to now think it's branding or connecting with the client or this, that, which it might be, who knows, but probably not if it's just an abrupt like turn off of lead, which is possible. It's possible. Not I don't know if it's probable, but it's possible for those that don't choose to stay up to date.
Very much so. And the user behavior is only going to continue to evolve with it.
Yeah.
So this is not something where, and I'm not just talking AI, I mean the
of course,
ecosystem. This is not something where it's that's a nice to have. This is on the path to, this is necessary for the future of business.
Yeah. Well, Sean, this has been a lot of fun having you on the show and getting into just growth and what's going on there. What's next for you? What's next for Intero Digital? Like, talk to me about what's next on the plans on the horizon.
A big one that we've been doing a lot of testing on, we've already touched on a little bit, which is this AI and how we interact with it. It's referred to as generative engine optimization. So how do you make someone show up and be that answer and that authority for those different responses? And that's a big push for us to make sure that we are able to fulfill that and be effective for all of our clients in that front. And another big piece of it is to make sure that whatever's coming next, because there is going to be the next thing.
For sure.
We aren't just waiting for it, but we're ready for it whenever it launches, because every single one of these channels and every single business is going to continue to test, and it's going to continue to go through an evolution that we can't sit on the sidelines and watch happen. We have to help make it happen to where our clients are feeling the successes from it and not the pain from it.
Yeah. It's great. Well, Sean, if somebody's listening to this and they want to follow up and continue the conversation, I know we scratched the surface on some of these things, and I know you can go way further, as can your team. How do people connect with Intero Digital?
Yeah, you can find us at interodigital.com. We have contact form, phone number, email readily available there. You can find us on social media, Intero Digital, very easy across all the major platforms. Or if none of those are working and you're like, but how do I just call? There's also our phone numbers all across the internet. Feel free.
A phone number. That's what I'm talking about, man. A real company. I love it. So by the way, we'll for everybody watching, we'll put all that information in the show notes so that you can just click on the links, head right on over to the website, of course, or give them a ring as well. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time with Mission Matters and you haven't hit the subscribe or follow button yet, we welcome you to do so. This is a daily show. Each and every day, we're bringing you new entrepreneurs, new executives, new content, new ideas, and hopefully new inspiration that's going to help you along the way in your journey as well. So that's what this is all about, is all of us growing together. So definitely hit that subscribe or follow button. And Sean, man, this has been a lot of fun. I look forward to continuing to watch your journey, and thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Adam.